This week on Full Circle Florida, unity, division, and where we go from here. 1 week after the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, where does this race now stand? Did Trump really get a post-assassination boost in the polls? A deeper look at the latest numbers from 538 Politics. Hot and cold, the calls to turn down the temperature on the campaign trail. Did it last? Is it even honest? And who needs a lesson in civility more, us or the politicians themselves? Our panel is here. The debate over the tone and temperature and the difference between rhetoric and results, facts and feelings, campaigning and governing. Plus, is the Democratic Party beating itself? The internal division surfacing again this week. The calls from within his own party to drop out. The president standing firm. How do they expect to win if they don't even like their own candidate? And will Kamala Harris take over? And what is the future of Trump's legal problems? The classified documents case thrown out, but it's not over yet. What about Georgia? What about January 6th? What about Trump's New York Senates? Our legal analyst is here with what comes next. Let's get into it. Our panel is here. Janelle Irwin-Taylor, the publisher of SoutheastPolitics.com, joining us this week, and he is the host of the Ryan Gorman Show on News Radio WFLA. Ryan Gorman joining us once again. Now, if Kamala Harris is the Democratic nominee, how does that change this race, or does it? And do the Democrats even know what they're going to do? There's so many competing headlines right now.
Well, I mean, I think that's a hard question to ask.
It's a loaded question.
I mean, yes, of course it changes everything because it's a whole different person with a whole different gender and a whole different race at the top of the ballot. And the logistics are just very difficult. But the logistics with her are a lot easier than if it were somebody like, say, Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer. So, I mean, I think it's fine. But at this point, with the drip, drip, drip of people that we've had coming out and saying that Biden needs to get out of this race, it's hard to imagine a scenario where he doesn't have to at some point wake up and smell the roses and recognize that this is something he's going to be forced to do. Yeah.
Dam is going to break at some point?
Oh, absolutely. It already is. I always said, I think for the past 2 weeks, it's only a matter of when, not if. I mean, it was clear that he wasn't going to make it. What him getting out does and bringing somebody new in, it changes the dynamic of the race, and you have a real opportunity for your Democrats to kind of reset things. And it doesn't mean they're going to win, but it gives them a chance, whereas right now I don't think they have.
Is there enough time to do that?
Yeah.
Oh,
still enough time on the clock?
4 months on a political calendar is like forever. So there's plenty of time, especially when you're able to seamlessly transition the current Biden infrastructure to Harris. That makes it a lot easier.
Trump's speech, did it turn down the tone and rhetoric and temperature of this race, or was that just a 24-hour thing?
If you had cut it after 10 minutes, absolutely. But, you know, the 90 some odd minutes that he spoke for, he very quickly transitioned back to his own
And
self.
whoever the nominee for the Democratic Party will be, are they going to have to turn up the temperature to get people kind of enthused about this?
I mean, I don't know that that's the route they should go, because I think the country is looking for somebody to come in. And look, it's not about unity where we all have to be on the same page. It's about, being able to disagree more civilly and offering some kind of a positive vision for the future. So I think that gives them a real opportunity to do something like that. And that would create a pretty stark contrast from what you have with the Trump-Vance ticket.
I think they do need to turn up the temperature, though, on the economy. And they're not going to be able to do that until all of the distraction that is he in or is he out ends.
Make it about the issue of the economy and talk about that.
The economy, stupid.
Well, but let's talk about division, because division as in actual, are we divided, are we not divided? I've struggled to make sense of this. On one hand, you can make the argument that division is good. It keeps us honest, keeps both sides in check. On the other hand, if one of these candidates ends up winning decisively, and we go back to the elections of yesteryear, where you wake up the next day and you say, this person's the president, you shrug your shoulders, you move on, you go to work, and life moves on. How can you make the argument that the country's divided if the voters end up clearly speaking in this election? If it's not as close as we think it was going to be?
That's a big what if, for starters. But I would argue that if Trump wins in a landslide, which right now the numbers are suggesting if anybody wins in a landslide, it would be him. If that's what happens, I would argue that there's a lot of people who are going to vote for him who really don't want to vote for him. The same way there's a lot of people who are going to vote for Biden who don't want to vote for him. Yeah. So that division still exists, even if it doesn't bear out in the data.
Yeah, and I think we've seen some miscalculations on the part of Trump when he won in 2016, and certainly on the part of Biden when he won in 2020. This idea that they had some kind of a mandate that they really didn't have, and I don't think that helped them during their presidencies.
Janelle, you alluded to it, the economy, and I'm trying to get to the heart of what this election is really about, because I would argue that when you look at the data and the numbers and the rhetoric versus results, the facts versus feelings, this economy is not a hellscape the way Donald Trump would want it to portray it to be. It's not a perfect economy. It's a frustrating economy. But, in 2008, people lost their homes. In 2020, people were locked up in their homes. You feel a bad economy. And I'm not saying people don't feel that the economy isn't bad for them. But again, low unemployment, inflation coming back down. So what is this election really about? Is it about culture and personality and this juxtaposition of strength versus weakness, perception at least? I mean,
that question, the answer to that question is different depending on who the group is answering. If you ask the political class, it's going to come down to differences in ideologies on policy issues. But the average American voter, what they're looking at right now is that perception of the economy, and they are seeing higher prices at the gas pump, they are seeing higher prices at the grocery store, and that matters. I think what it's about to them is fear. And that fear is not just, it's not just boogeymen coming across the border, it's also fear of their pocketbooks and whether or not they're going to make ends meet. And that fear is being pushed more successfully by the Republican Party than it is by the Democratic Party.
Hard to separate feelings from facts. I mean, people do vote with their feelings, right?
I've said it's a vibes election, and it's how you feel about these two candidates and their ability to do the job. That's why when the debate happened and the focus became, can Biden do the job? That's why you saw such a shift in the race.
And that is playing out in real time. All right, hang with me, panel. We'll be back next here on Full Circle Florida. Dr. Susan McManus will be joining us from Milwaukee. What she saw and did not see at the Republican National Convention. Her thoughts next.